There's a place inside you that you fear to touch, a dark corridor you haven't walked down, a challenge you avoid, a truth you repress. Why? Because it is unknown, and the unknown is terrifying. But here's the paradox of life. What you most need to find is hidden in the very place you least want to look. If you do not go into the unknown, then you are not living, you are merely surviving, and survival without purpose is a slow death of the soul. We often imagine that the unknown is a pit of chaos, suffering, and danger, but in truth it is also the soil from which meaning grows. Every great accomplishment, every transformation, every rebirth of the human spirit has come not from comfort zones, but from confrontation with the unknown. The cave you fear to enter holds the treasure you seek, not because it's easy, but because it's real. You cannot write the story of your life in bold if you refuse to turn the page into uncertainty. The things that matter most, your future, your character, your destiny, are not found in safety. They emerge when you are willing to voluntarily confront what is frightening and to take responsibility for walking into the dark. You grow by exposing yourself to what you do not understand and then learning to navigate it. That's how meaning is made. It is earned, not given. There's comfort in routine, in predictability. It keeps life manageable, but order left unchecked becomes suffocating. You become a slave to the same day, repeated endlessly. What begins as discipline hardens into rigidity. You forget how to adapt. You stop learning. You no longer grow. That's why we must voluntarily go into the unknown. You must introduce chaos, just enough to keep you awake, alert, evolving. This is not recklessness. It's necessary disruption. It prevents life from calcifying into habit. You were not made to be static. The unknown breaks the shell of who you are so that something stronger can emerge. But only if you choose to step toward it. We often think fear is a warning, don't go there, but in many cases, fear is a map. It tells you where to go next, that presentation you're terrified to give, that conversation you've been avoiding, that change you're not sure you're ready for. These aren't just sources of anxiety, they are invitations. If you avoid what frightens you, you give it power over your life. But if you turn and face it voluntarily with courage, you change, you gain control, and you develop competence. Fear then becomes fuel. It tells you this matters. And when you listen and move forward anyway, you become someone capable of facing even greater things. That is how courage is built, not in the absence of fear, but in its presence. You don't find yourself by thinking about who you want to be. You find yourself by testing who you are in situations where the outcome is not certain. You don't know what you're made of until the world pushes back. You don't discover your voice in silence. You find it when you speak in the storm. Going into the unknown strips away illusions. It reveals your limits, but it also shows you that those limits are not fixed. You become more than you were, more than you thought possible. But you must be willing to lose your old self to find your real one. That's the trade: comfort for truth, safety for growth, certainty for transformation. And it's worth it. We often carry a primal fear of the unknown, as if it were a void, a chasm waiting to swallow us whole. But that fear is misplaced, not because the unknown is harmless, but because it is necessary. The unknown is not a threat, it is the potential for growth. It is chaos, yes, but chaos that precedes transformation. Think of it this way: if your life is fully mapped out, completely predictable, where nothing challenges you, then you are no longer alive in the truest sense. You're simply repeating, and repetition, when divorced from discovery, slowly drains your vitality. What gives life its pulse is the dance between order and chaos, the known and the unknown. When you willingly step into what you do not understand, something extraordinary happens. You start to become. Meaning is not something that simply appears. You don't find meaning lying passively on your couch. You encounter it when you take responsibility for walking into the forest of uncertainty, armed not with complete confidence, but with willingness to risk, to stumble, to fail, to get back up. The human spirit was never designed for stagnation. We were made to move forward, to grow, and to wrestle with the boundaries of what we know so that those boundaries expand. Every meaningful endeavor in your life will demand this confrontation. Think of starting a new job, committing to a relationship, moving to a new city, or even choosing to speak your truth. All these acts are terrifying because they ask you to surrender control. But it is in that very surrender conscious, voluntary, courageous that you begin to uncover something far more valuable than certainty. You discover your potential. You come to understand that you are not a fixed identity, not some finalized personality stuck in place. You are a living process, a work in motion, and the only way to continue that process is by entering into the space where not everything is defined. The real tragedy is not that people fail. The tragedy is that most people never try. They sit at the edge of what they know and call it wisdom, but wisdom is forged in the fire of experience, and experience only comes from risk. The unknown is not your enemy, it is the path. If you avoid it, you abandon your own becoming. But if you confront it, you give yourself a chance to turn your life into something noble, something meaningful, something true. We all crave structure. It helps us function, predict outcomes, and manage daily life. Without it, everything would be chaos, too much uncertainty, too many possibilities. But what we often fail to realize is that too much structure can be just as dangerous as too little. When order dominates your life completely, it slowly becomes a prison. What begins as a way to manage your world transforms into a rigid framework that stifles your growth. You follow the same routine, repeat the same actions, think the same thoughts. Your days blur into one another, not because life is peaceful, but because you've unconsciously stopped evolving. You are no longer living, you're maintaining, and maintaining without expanding is the first step towards psychological decay. The very systems we create to help us function, schedules, habits, roles can become the walls of our self-made cage. And here's the paradox: the more successful these systems are at keeping us safe, the more likely they are to eventually limit us. We become dependent on predictability, but predictability eliminates novelty, and novelty is a critical ingredient for adaptation and resilience. If everything is known, if everything is familiar, then nothing changes, and if nothing changes, neither do you. That's why you must voluntarily introduce the unknown into your life, not recklessly, but strategically. It might mean taking a different path to work. It might mean asking a difficult question you've been avoiding. It might mean reconsidering your assumptions, stepping outside your usual circle, or learning a skill you think you're too old to learn. These acts, though small, are revolutionary because they inject chaos into the structure, and chaos, in the right proportion, is exactly what keeps your inner system alive. This isn't just a philosophical idea, it's deeply practical. A life with no challenge breeds complacency, and complacency breeds fragility. People who never test their boundaries fall apart the moment life throws something unexpected their way. But those who regularly engage with the unknown build inner muscle. They become flexible, alert, and adaptable. They are not destroyed by uncertainty because they have practiced it. Stability without challenge becomes tyranny. Your own mind begins to suppress your hunger for more. You become obedient, not to society or a system, but to your fear of change, and in doing so, you sacrifice who you could be for the comfort of who you are. That comfort is seductive, but it is not your friend. It is the slow erosion of your potential, disguised as peace. Only by deliberately inviting the unknown into your life do you avoid becoming a prisoner of your own safety. Fear is one of the most misunderstood forces in the human experience. We treat it like an enemy, something to avoid, suppress, or overcome, but the truth is far more complex and far more empowering. Fear is not your enemy, it is your guide. It's a signal that you are standing at the edge of transformation. When fear appears, it doesn't always mean go back. Often, it means pay attention. It means something valuable is on the other side, something that matters. If it didn't matter, you wouldn't feel fear. The weight of that emotion is a direct reflection of the significance of what's at stake. Fear, then, isn't a stop sign, it's a compass. The things we fear most are often the very things that contain the potential to change our lives. The job interview you're scared to attend, the difficult truth you're afraid to speak, the project you've been postponing because of self-doubt, these are not random discomforts, these are thresholds. They are opportunities disguised as obstacles, and if you retreat from every threshold, your life shrinks. You begin living in a smaller and smaller world where less and less is possible simply because fear was allowed to set the boundaries. But when you take a different approach, when you decide to feel fear and move toward it instead of away from it, everything shifts. You reclaim agency, you turn fear into fuel. This doesn't mean being reckless or charging headlong into danger without wisdom. It means you acknowledge your fear, examine it, and use it as a tool to identify what truly matters to you. What you fear most often reflects what you value most, and values are not things you can ignore without consequences. If you fear speaking up, it might mean you value truth. If you fear failure, it might mean you value excellence. If you fear rejection, it might mean you value connection. That's powerful information. That's a map to your soul. Fear then becomes a kind of internal radar. It highlights the areas where growth is most available. It shows you where you are still unfinished, and it points to the exact place where you must go next, not because it's easy, but because it's necessary. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is the decision that something else matters more, and that decision is only possible when you stop seeing fear as a barrier and start seeing it as a beacon. You follow it not blindly, but with purpose, because you understand that the discomfort you feel now is the path to the strength you'll gain later. That's not weakness, that's mastery. You do not discover who you are by thinking about it in isolation. Self-discovery is not a product of daydreaming or endless introspection or even careful planning. Who you are is revealed only in the act of doing, especially in the act of doing something difficult, uncertain, or unfamiliar. Your identity is forged not in comfort, but in confrontation, and what you must confront, again and again, is the unknown. The unknown strips away the narratives you've clung to, the false certainty you've built around yourself. It exposes your limits, but also illuminates your potential. When you walk willingly into unfamiliar territory, something deep and ancient within you wakes up. You become alert, you become engaged, you become alive. There is a powerful truth hiding here. Identity is not static. You are not a fixed entity defined once and forever by your past. You are in constant motion, and the unknown is the proving ground for your future self. When you do what scares you, when you say what needs to be said, when you step into the unfamiliar instead of shrinking back, you uncover capabilities you didn't know you had, you reveal strength that was dormant. And more importantly, you reshape your sense of self. You are no longer just someone with ideas or intentions. You become someone who acts, who dares, who evolves. This isn't easy. You'll encounter resistance, not just from the world, but from within yourself. Your habits, your fears, your excuses will all rise up to keep you anchored in the familiar, but each time you override them and step into the unknown, even in a small way, you break the illusion of limitation. You begin to trust yourself, not blindly, but through proof. Real confidence doesn't come from affirmations or external validation. It comes from experience, from putting yourself to the test and seeing that, though you were uncertain, you handled it. You adapted, you grew, and perhaps most profoundly, when you go into the unknown, you learn that you are not defined by your fear, your past, or your failures. You are defined by your willingness to face them. You find your voice by using it in unfamiliar conversations. You find your strength by lifting burdens you once thought unbearable. You find your purpose by engaging with what is chaotic and turning it into something meaningful. That process, that transformation, is not theoretical. It is personal, lived, and earned. It is how you become more than who you were yesterday. It is how you discover who you truly are and who you are capable of becoming. When we look honestly at our lives, it becomes clear that everything of value, growth, strength, clarity, and purpose, has come not from remaining in the known, but from moving beyond it. The unknown is terrifying, yes, but it is also sacred. It is the raw material from which transformation is made. To go into the unknown is not to escape life, but to finally step into it. When you avoid the unknown, you settle for safety at the cost of your potential. But when you face it, not recklessly but willingly, you come alive. You begin to see life not as something that happens to you, but as something you are called to engage with fully, even when the outcome is uncertain. This journey requires that you release your grip on control, that you make peace with risk, with failure, and with discomfort, but in doing so, you reclaim something far more valuable: freedom. Freedom from the expectations that have confined you, from the narratives that have defined you, and from the fear that has ruled you. You stop living a life of quiet repetition and instead choose one of bold exploration. You realize that to become who you truly are, you must let go of who you thought you were supposed to be, and in that release there is renewal. You are no longer just surviving. You are evolving, maturing, and becoming something more. The unknown becomes your training ground. It tempers your character, tests your values, and reveals your strengths. It will not flatter you. It will challenge you, disorient you, and at times even break you. But every meaningful breakthrough in your life will come through that very process. And with every challenge overcome, you grow more grounded in who you are, not because you've avoided hardship, but because you've endured it. You begin to trust yourself in a way that's unshakable, not because everything went according to plan, but because you walked into the chaos and learned how to stand in it with purpose. That is the mark of a truly strong human being. In the end, the unknown is not your enemy, it is your calling. It is the invitation life extends to you daily, asking if you are willing to become the author of your own story, not merely a character in someone else's. So go into the unknown, not because it's easy, not because it's safe, but because it's necessary, because within it lies everything you were meant to uncover: your gifts, your voice, your courage, and ultimately, your truest self. Don't run from it, walk toward it, with your eyes open, your back straight, and your heart ready. That's how transformation begins. That's how your real life starts. Thank you for taking the time to be here today and for walking with me through this journey into the unknown. If this message resonated with you, even in a small way, then I hope it stirs something deep within you. Remember, the most powerful changes in life begin with the smallest decision to face what we fear and move forward anyway. Your time and attention are valuable, and I don't take that for granted. If you found meaning in these words, I invite you to reflect, to act, and most importantly, to keep stepping into the parts of life that challenge you. Growth doesn't come in comfort. It comes when you dare to step beyond what is familiar and embrace what lies ahead with strength and responsibility. Before I go, please consider liking this video, subscribing to the channel, and sharing this message with someone who might need it. Let's build a space where bold thinking and honest self-reflection can thrive. Thank you once again. Take care of yourselves, stay brave, and never stop becoming. Goodbye for now, and I'll see you in the next one.